Planet Dolan. What pair of buildings is designed to create a death ray strong enough to melt a car? What is the Hotel of Doom, and why is it taking more than 30 years to build? Here are 10 of the most embarrassing failures in architecture and construction. How's it going? I'm Danger Dolan. I'm here to decipher some random things I found on the internet the other day that I think you might be interested in.
Number 10.
Rio Kyung Hotel. One of the most telling things about this North Korean hotel is that it started construction in 1987 and it is still not finished. North Korean dictator Kim Il-sung ordered the construction of the hotel as a jealous response to Singapore completing construction of the world's tallest hotel and Seoul, South Korea hosting the 1988 Olympics. Rio Kyung was intended to be the tallest hotel in the world, and even in its unfinished state it stands as one of the tallest skyscrapers in the world, but the building has run into countless problems in construction, which has started and stopped repeatedly over the years. Now it is typically known as the Ghost Hotel or the Hotel of Doom, a 1,000-foot tall skyscraper with nothing in it.
Number 9.
The Lotus Riverside, Shanghai, China is one of the site of the most bizarre building collapses ever. As contractors dug out an underground garage, they took ground from the south side of the building and dumped it onto the north side. This created this uneven weight distribution, which caused pressure on one side. The result was that the building support started to tilt, then snapped at the ground level, and the entire building simply toppled over, almost completely intact. Luckily, there was enough space for the building to fall over and hit the ground. Otherwise, there would have been a domino effect with multiple buildings.
Number 8.
The Ray and Maria Starter Center at MIT is considered a marvel of architecture by some. By others, it's considered a disaster. But regardless of how you feel about the jagged exterior, the inside of it has been a problem since it was constructed in 2004. In 2007, MIT sued the award-winning architect who designed the building after it started springing leaks, growing mold, and cracking along the exterior from design flaws.
Number 7.
Athens Olympic Stadiums. Hosting the Olympic Games is a huge deal for any city. That was even more true in 2004 when the Games returned to their ancestral home in Athens, Greece. The gleaming new stadiums and facilities cost approximately 9 billion euros to build. They were fine for the Games themselves, but in more than a decade since, these stadiums have sat abandoned and in disrepair. Meanwhile, Greece itself has gone through a complete economic collapse, which many economists trace back to the massive investment into the Olympic prep itself.
Number 6.
Today's Boston's John Hancock Tower is a landmark, but in the 1970s it was known as a huge architectural embarrassment whose budget went from $75 million to over $175 million. The building was covered in blue reflective glass panes, but sometimes those panes simply popped out of the building, falling hundreds of feet to the ground below. Once the reason for that was identified, all the window panes, over 10,000 of them, needed to be replaced. During that process, much of the building was covered in plywood. In addition, the building didn't handle wind very well. It swayed so much, people on the upper floors would get motion sickness.
Number 5.
Citi Field, New York. Construction for a major sports venue always has complications, and budgets can sometimes be like suggestions. But Citi Field is one of the most embarrassing ones ever. It cost $850 million to build the park in 2009, and as soon as they did, it started falling apart. Elevators didn't work, water leaks caused mold in the walls, and electricity shorted out in the kitchens. At one point, a 20-foot section of pipe fell into the bullpen, and a huge sign fell onto the walkway. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but the contractor was sued for overbilling on shoddy work.
Number 4.
The Vada Hotel and Spa in Las Vegas is home to something called the Vada Death Ray. It's not some comic book supervillain thing, it's a term for the sun's focused reflection off the curved glass of the hotel itself. The glass is sort of a magnifying glass effect that focuses around the pool and sunbathing area. The walkie-talkie in London, designed by the same architect, has the same problem. The focused sunlight off the building heats the street below to temperatures approaching 200 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to melt bike seats and parts of cars. Because of this, they call it the Fry Scraper.
Number 3.
When the Tacoma Narrows Bridge was constructed, even the construction workers themselves referred to the bridge as Galloping Gertie. The name comes from the bridge's tendency to bounce, especially in high winds, which altered engineers to potential instability. Regardless, the bridge continued to get made with stopgap measures to fix the bouncing. The bridge opened on July 1st, 1940 as the third longest suspension bridge in the world, and the public was told that the galloping was normal and safe. On November 7th, 1940, just 4 months later, a 600-foot portion of the bridge twisted in the high winds, broke apart, and collapsed into the water.
Number 2.
The Aon Center in Chicago was known as the Standard Oil Building when it was built, and that's when it was a problem. For a while, it was an incredible looking building, with the entire building facing with Italian Carrara marble, making it the world's largest marble-clad building. But on December 25th, 1973, when a 350-pound slab of marble fell off the building and crashed through the roof of the Prudential Center nearby. At first, they simply tried to replace the marble, but an inspection in 1985 showed that the marble was bending, bowing, and cracking all over the place. As it turns out, the marble they used was pretty, but too thin for use on a building of that size. They added steel straps to hold the marble in place for a while, but then by 1989, they decided to reface the entire building with granite at a cost of $80 million.
Number 1.
Obviously, we'd finish with the most famous construction failure that's still standing today. The Leaning Tower of Pisa was, as you might imagine, never intended to actually lean. The combination of a shaky foundation and soft ground led to the structure that tilted even before its construction was finished. You can actually see some of the ways they tried to compensate for the problem without scrapping the project altogether. That's why the tower is built with a slight banana-like curve to it. They thought it would help stabilize the building. Well, it didn't, and until 1990 it continued to lean even more. Luckily, a restoration effort helped to stabilize the tower before it toppled over entirely, and now it seems it should stay put for at least the next 100 years. This video was made possible by our fans over on Patreon. Thanks for your support, guys. That is it for this countdown. Have a good one!